Marvel Rivals, Season 1, Invisible Woman on the new map, Midtown. I like this map and I like this character, and we're on attack this time rather than defense. I've putting out a gameplay with Mr. Fantastic and I'm putting out a gameplay with Invisible Woman. Ironically, the gameplay I wanted to put out with this character was a game I accidentally streamed instead of recording it, so it's on my Twitch if you're interested. It was a pretty fun game, and I was just in the pocket doing what I needed to do. Whereas this one is a very highly contested game, and it doesn't go the way I wanted it to, but I'm going to do my best to make sure that it does. So my first piece of advice on this map when you're being attacked is they will always stack up on the door here because they get the time to do it, much like Team Fortress 2. So there's a doorway to my left. You can go out that door, flank around, do some reconnoitering, do some damage, do some backline stuff, and it's really strong, and no one does it yet. I've only ever seen one Star-Lord look at that way when I've come out on all the multiple playthroughs I've done of this stage afterwards. But in this particular instance, it was quite early, so I went straight through main, and now we're pushing the objective. So, Invisible Woman, I think, is the kind of character who, in the right hands and the right situations, is going to be really good. But I think that there are times when she definitely feels a lot more difficult than some of the other healers. So, of course, Mantis and Luna are incredibly broken in this game, and they're super strong in almost every situation. You are a fool for not using them, and if your team doesn't have them, you're at a disadvantage. But who the fuck wants to always play meta? It's boring. You know, they put 35 characters in this game. I want to play different characters. That's not mentioning how good Loki is, even though people are sleeping on him, or how a good Adam Warlock can be a DPS and a really good healer and do some clutch revives. But this character is really interesting, and I can't help but feel like I don't understand how Widow can be so boring and so broken and just not have a kit and feel like she needs to be redesigned, when these DLC characters have got some of the most interesting shit in the game. Like, really interesting stuff, multifaceted, multi-role, like, very helpful and very unique. And yet the new guys not so much, or the old guys I should say. But let's talk about her, shall we? So she's of course a strategist, she's got 275 HP. One thing that's really cool about this character is if you don't engage anyone using abilities or shooting, she goes invisible after a certain amount of time. It's quite long. It's not the best amount of time, but it'll do. And when you're invisible, you do make noise, your feet can be heard, but they cannot see you, obviously. You're invisible. You can use this to scout ahead for your team and tell them what's happening and see what people are up to and how they're setting up, which can be very powerful. You can use it to escape. You can use it to ambush. You can use it to get on the point and make the point challenged without people realizing you're there. And it's easily done, and people are kind of cottoning onto it now, so it's going to be very effective. So when she's invisible, she has a lot of utility to make flanks, to make plays, and to get back to her team, which leads to survivability. But of course, it's going to be up to you to use it and for the enemies not to see you using it. Her main attack is really interesting. She fires like out an energy chakram, it goes forward a certain amount of time, and then it comes back. And it attacks both ways. And it's projectile, so it's somewhat slow, and you do have to aim it. You're not going to get the aiming like Cloak and Dagger. However, it hurts enemies and it heals friends. So if you line her up, much like Storm, much like, you know, the Luna shift button where she does the hand clap attack, you can get piercing, and the piercing will both help and hurt. So right now, if I get behind Cog here on Magneto, I can heal him and I can hurt the people in front of him. And it's actually a good idea not to jump as much as I'm jumping here with this girl. I'm jumping through instinct to try not to be easy to hit, even though sometimes it can be easier to hit you. And I should be standing my ground so I can get the full penetration, which is something to think about. Nothing wrong with jumping every so often, but jumping all the time, just a bad habit I've got. And not the worst habit, but still a habit that you need to crack down on certain characters. So again, if you can get into a position where you can hit many enemies in a row, or many friends in a row, she comes alive in her utility. It's just you can't always get that situation, especially if you're playing pretty much in the front line here and just supporting the way I'm supporting. Sometimes you're going to have to be a bit more creative, but it's not the end of the world that we're not. Then, on her right mouse button, she has the ability to put a shield at people's feet, which the shield will then start to regenerate them, which is really handy. And the thing with it is, you can remove the shield when you want to, and it will make the cooldown better on the shield. So you don't have to leave it and let people break it. And what you can do, guys, is you can, because you can't shield yourself, when you press it, you will only shield an ally. So they can be quite far in front of you. You can give them a shield, give them that bit of the regen, then quickly take it away and give it to somebody else. And depending on who needs it most, you can be flicking the shield out and really helping people. And for instance, if you see, you know, a Black Panther or an Iron Fist or a Venom or something, and they're diving down, and you know that the people they're diving on aren't as healthy and they're not going to be as healthy as you need them to be, you can stick the shield on them as they come down, give them that bit of advantage, and then start trying to heal them as well. And you can maximize on your efficiency and your utility. And I love to pop it up, give them some life, pop it back down, and then maybe see what's happening and reassess. It's a super cool tool, but it takes a bit more brain power than your average just hold button and stare at bad guys. Right now we're 2 men down, one of our tanks has just died, Magneto starts pulling back, he gets frozen. I'm trying here to help and hinder at the same time. We've got 2 healers though, so we should be okay. I say we should be okay, the video freezes on my playback and now my tank is dying. I'm sorry, Magneto, it's just how it happens, isn't it? But you'll also see then, guys, that I jumped backwards and I went invisible. So when you jump a second time, obviously when you jump in midair, you will do an extra springy jump and it will make you invisible, and it will give you all the benefits of being invisible, which means people can't see you, and it starts your healing. So save your double jump for when you take some damage and you don't have a healer with you, and then you can jump away out of danger, proc the healing, and then try and get away. But sadly I didn't have it and I got Mr. Fantastic, and that was a pretty good play from him. That leads us to her left shift. Her left shift is my personal favourite ability, and it pairs with my second favourite ability of hers, which is her push. So left shift fires out an orb, it's like a dome, right? And it's a lot like Cloak and Dagger, only they've inverted it. Instead of it being an area of healing, which would have been really powerful, don't get me wrong, it would have been cool, instead it does tick damage on the enemies. And the cool thing about it is it goes quite far and you can ignite it and detonate it in midair, so you can control where it detonates. And in a lot of my gameplay that you might see, I'm just firing it at walls and hoping that it's going to hit the wall and go off, which it does do. But you will be able to send it out there and then release it and get a lot more, you know, bang for your buck in a bad situation if you need to do that. But the cool thing about this maneuver is when people take damage in multiplayer games, unless they are the ultimate, like, low ability players, they are going to have to do something about it. Taking damage causes people to panic. If they're more experienced, they don't panic the same, but even good players and experienced players will see damage and then their brain will say, we need to move, or we need to do something about it. And sometimes just that bit of damage is enough to displace a team or move people away or get people thinking about the wrong things, and then it enables you to start thinking about the right things and have success. So sticking that out can be great for catching a Psylocke running away, or anyone that thinks that they're behind, you know, a piece of cover, and you fire it to them and it goes through the cover and it finishes them off. Like, it has tons of utility for denial, to control space, to stop people being aggressive, and to help you defend yourself. Because if you get dove and you jump and they hit you and you're no longer invisible, stick that shit at your feet and then go down swinging. And then combine it with your last ability, which is her E, which is a push and a pull. This move doesn't seem all that interesting at first. I've seen a lot of people not use it, but it has so much outplay potential. You can push people off edges. If you're playing maps that have got literal gaps, this move becomes legitimately great, because you can go invisible, you can go all the way up to it, wait for the team to be in a position, and then push them off. And of course, I wouldn't recommend that you do that too much, because I don't think that's her role, but if you get the opportunity, you'd be a fool not to. Because when you press E, she goes into a posture, and then from there she can either push people or she can pull them. And when you combine this with your dome of damage, people start running away, you can pull them back into your dome. You can pull them into ults. You can, when you get dove by somebody like Thor does his dashing move to come close to you, you push that guy away. Captain America jumps down, slams with his shield on your team, you push him away. You can completely shut down what people want to do, and it feels weird. When you get pushed, you don't know what's happening. You're like, whoa. Oh, I remember Invisible Woman. Like, it's this strange sensation of you expect the game to work one way and then it starts working a different way. So it is such a good tool, and it also does damage as well. So if you're ever shooting at like an Iron Man in the air and he tries to get away and you can't quite hit him with your range, fucking throw him. Fire that shit at him, it'll probably finish him off. I've done it so many times, it's really cool. And then the final thing is her ult, and I just did it then. So her ult is really, really interesting, but at the same time it's kind of frustrating when you're the enemy of it. So she puts a circle down of influence. In that area, if any enemy stands in it, they will be slowed. If any allies stand in it, they will be healed, and you cannot see into it. So it turns it into a really interesting thing, because you can come up with some interesting plays. However, as you just saw, there is counterplay. And the counterplay usually involves dumping some other ult on top of it to catch people using it to hide in, which is exactly what that Moon Knight did. And Moon Knight's ult now is so fast, it's almost impossible to react to, which I just don't think is a good change. I don't mind them changing his ult because I do think it needed some help, but making it so that the moment he casts it, you get fucking melted, it just feels like they've overtuned him. And then the more we talk about Storm, the more we're going to come to realise that Storm has gone from being a joke, even though she was kind of good, to being an actual problem. In Season 1, Storm is trouble. But that was some fantastic woman, guys. She's really, really cool. I think she's a little bit more difficult than some of the other healers, but I think if you use her correctly, she's going to be fierce.